Hello, welcome to a very new and unusual live with me because we're not in my bedroom at home. We're in the glamorous offices of the Brilliant Club in London, and I am joined by two amazing students. One student from Manchester University, and her name is Sarah, and she is currently studying. And we also got off here, we've got Jesus, who is a PhD at King's College London. And so today we're going to be here for about an hour. Please bear with us in terms of your questions. This is the first time that I can't see my phone and I can't see your questions, but we will get through them. We've got the lovely Louise, who is the background maestro, and she's going to be going through the questions and calling them out. So we will get through to your questions. This is a space for anyone who is preparing to go to university. So you've just done your exams, you're on your summer holiday, you're waiting for the sun to come out, and you're preparing for your results day and then going to university. Or even if you're potentially taking a gap year, this is for you. Also for year 12 students, for year 11 students, for year 10 students, just welcome. This is a really safe space where we're just going to be helping you think about prepare for university and all that kind of shenanigans. And because university was a long time ago for me, we have got these two amazing students who are going to give their personal perspective, their advice, and to talk to you about something called Join the Dots, which is an amazing free program. And I don't want you to leave the live now, but I do want you to write it on your hand, write it somewhere, write it in your notes. Join the Dots is an amazing free program. It takes 5 minutes to sign up, and it will give you an array of resources to help you prepare for university, 2 amazing webinars that will go through everything you need to know about student finances, preparing for results day, just basically making the best kind of start at university possible. And then if you go to King's or Kent or Essex or Liverpool John Moores or Goldsmith or Durham or Bristol University, and you do the Join the Dots mentoring scheme, you will get a PhD mentor like Jesus all to yourself, and they will guide you through the first couple of weeks and terms at university. And I mean, frankly, I just think that's amazing. So that's my spiel. I hope everyone's happy and healthy and not being rained on a Monday. So I'm going to head over to Sarah. Could you tell us a bit about you, Sarah? Who you are, where you are, what you're doing?
Of course. So hi everyone, I'm Sarah and I've just finished my second year of university at the University of Manchester studying biomedical science. I did do a foundation year. Some of you might be wondering what is a foundation year, and hopefully I'll be able to talk a little bit about that with you today.
Hello, I'm Jesus. I'm a PhD student. I work on stem cells and human development. I'm originally from Spain, and actually I did my undergrad in Spain and my master's in the Netherlands. So I think my background perhaps is slightly different to maybe the audience that we have today. I'll be more than happy to talk about career options, research in particular, and your journey through university. So really excited.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. So, Sarah, can I ask you, so you're doing biomedical science. Could you tell us how you've got to this stage? So maybe maybe go back to year 11, because you said some things before we started, which I think are really important students know, and you've just decided, you're like, oh, I wish I knew that back in the day. So yeah, give us your kind of trajectory.
So in year 11, I felt like I was quite ambitious to do well in my GCSEs. I kind of had a concept of what university was and knew that like if I went to university, I would do well. That was just kind of what was in my head at the time. I didn't really know too much about degree apprenticeships or like other forms of higher education. So during my GCSEs, I got a 5 in GCSE maths. And that did ultimately affect the A levels that I did. So in terms of the A levels that I did, I ended up doing A level biology, A level geography, and A level English literature. I took these A levels based off of the advice that doing these A levels is something that I enjoy and I knew that I could do well in. However, I didn't realize that if I had chosen something like A level psychology and A level biology, I could have gone on to do foundation year medicine, which a lot of universities do offer if you don't have the right combination of A levels, but you've got the right grades to get in, that sort of ambition and potential to do so. The reason I didn't end up doing the typical A-level biology, chemistry, and maths was because I only did get the GCSE grade 5 maths. And I do think like it's really important for young people watching today to research the GCSE and A-level option requirements for different courses at university, because now that I've finished my second year of university, I've only figured out that I could have actually done foundation year medicine and get into medicine if I had just changed one of my options. I also think it also shows that it's not the end of the world, because I ended up doing A levels that I really enjoy, and I did really well my GCSEs despite that grade 5 maths. I genuinely thought I was going to fail maths, but like at the end of the day, you realize that you are more than just your grades and you can go on to do big things.
Definitely. I mean, I talk about this all the time. GCSE maths and English language are so important to access pretty much anything at A level, and you need to get the minimum of 4 to actually go to any university. So you need to get a minimum 4 in English language and maths to get into any university. But then Sarah said, really interestingly, because she didn't get above a 5, she couldn't do chemistry, which then meant that she was limited in terms of what she could do at degree. It's interesting now, though, that how it's worked out. So you've done a foundation year in biomed at Manchester, and now you're on to the undergraduate pathway.
Yes.
And we should say, sorry to remind me, an undergraduate is the name for the first time you've studied at university. So if you're doing an undergraduate degree, that's your first degree, and it's normally 3 or 4 years, depending if it's a science or if you're in Scotland. Now, Jesus, over to you, because you're a little bit further down the line, and I think it's really interesting that we define these terms. What does masters mean, and what does a PhD mean?
Right. So, well, if you go to university and you do a degree in undergrad, you can then decide to do a bit more specialized degree. That can be first a master's and then a PhD. In the UK, for example, you can do a PhD straight from an undergrad, but many countries in Europe, including Spain, they do require you to do a master's. And the idea is that it's a further specialization of your degree, and it's often the case for research degrees that in your undergrad you get a very strong theoretical foundation, but then you specialize and you can do, for example, a master in research, an MRes. So that's very common actually in Europe.
And when you were doing the equivalent of A levels back home in Spain, did you know, oh, I'm going to go and do a PhD? Did you see that as happening? Or
no, not at all. And I absolutely understand the anxiety of having to choose to go to university. It's a really big decision. But as you said, Sarah, it's definitely not the end of the world. And I can tell you, back then, I didn't have a long-term plan of what I wanted to do. I thought it was really important to choose something I was interested in. I thought, okay, I could see myself doing that in the future. But no, absolutely, the decision to make a PhD came later, actually after my undergrad, when I was doing my master's.
And what was your undergrad in?
So I did biochemistry, which is really similar to biomedical sciences.
Yeah, what is the difference, people? I would like to know.
Well, I have to say there is a difference, and we could talk about that. In reality, I think it comes down to the modules and the courses you end up doing. And in reality, the difference is not that big anyway. I could have done biochemistry, biology, biomedical sciences, and it could have been exactly the same.
It's really interesting. And I think maybe I might ask actually for one more question from you, Jesus, and then we can go back to Sarah about how you applied to do a master's. And I think we've probably got some questions. But while we're looking at the question, how do you apply to do a master's and how do you apply to do a PhD? Because I get asked that quite a lot.
I mean, again, coming from a different background, I'm not that familiar with even how you apply to an undergrad in the UK. Sure. I believe you had to go through UCAS, and it's that specialized kind of portal. For both PhDs and masters, it's different. You apply directly to the university, and that means that their requirements are different and they're often not standardized, meaning that they might, in general, you apply based on your interest. You have to you have to write a statement of interest, and if the university believes that they want to offer you a place, they'll do so. For PhDs is slightly different. So a PhD is usually independent research. It comes after your undergrad and your master's. And the idea is that then you've got 3-4 years to do independent research. And usually you apply not just directly to the university, but to the department where you want to do the research. I'm happy to talk about that later if that's of interest.
That's wicked. Thank you, Jesus. Sarah, do you want to tell us about how you applied to the foundation year, and then how you applied to get into your current pathway, which is biomed? Just because there's a few questions about have you started in medicine, etc. So how do you apply to a foundation?
Okay, so I actually didn't really know what a foundation year was, and I was quite worried about being judged by my peers to kind of say to them, "Oh, look, I'm doing a foundation year." In terms of applying for a foundation year, you can apply through UCAS. Some universities will offer a foundation year, but not all universities do. So the best thing to do is to check like the UCAS website, but also the university website. So, for example, I'm currently studying biomedical sciences at University of Manchester, and if you wanted to do a foundation year in biosciences or a foundation year into mechanical engineering, for example, there is that option on the website. You can find out the UCAS code for it and apply for it. So that isn't the route that I actually took, but I know that there are some people that do that route, and I think that is really useful because if you know that you've got the potential, but you're kind of unsure whether you're going to get the right grades or the right qualifications, it kind of ensures like you'll have a higher chance of going to university in your first application rather than waiting for like an entire UCAS year. However, the way that it was for me personally was I applied for biomedical sciences directly through UCAS, and I chose 5 universities. I chose 2 aspirational universities, with Manchester being one of those, and then I chose like 3 safer options. In terms of that, I didn't meet the grade requirements for my biomedical sciences at the University of Manchester for direct entry. But because my A levels were pretty good, I got A in A level biology, which is the main thing you need for biosciences, and I got 2 Bs in geography and English. They also had read my personal statement, which was pretty strong. I showed enthusiasm and interest in my subject and my volunteering experience. And as a result, they did offer me a foundation year. And I was really happy to take that because at the time my learning was interrupted by COVID-19 with all the lockdowns and missed schooling. Online learning is not the same as in-person teaching. It really does make a difference. And I felt like I'd be so much more prepared to go into university and do well and get that first that I'm aspiring to do. So if you don't know what a first is at university, it's basically like the highest sort of classification you can get for an undergraduate degree, which is an average of over 70% for your duration of your degree, which is usually 3 years. However, don't worry if at university you end up not doing as well in first year, because you can make that average up in your second and third years, which have a higher weighting. So going back to the answer of the foundation year, you can apply directly through UCAS. However, sometimes your university will offer it if they see that aspiration because you've just missed your grade requirements. So my offer was very strange. I got an offer of 1A, 1A, 2 A's and 1C. So it was a very strange offer that I didn't get. I ended up getting A, B, B.
And actually, sorry to interrupt, I get asked this a lot. If you get, if you get higher, but then some subjects get lower, can you still get in? It's actually, the answer often is no. It's a very particular offer, isn't it? But anyway, sorry, I interrupted. So you were given those offers, and then what happened?
So what happened was I didn't get the AAC, but they automatically offered me the foundation year for biosciences. And I was a little bit skeptical at first because I didn't really understand. But the University of Manchester, when I called their helpline that they gave them the number of A-level results day, they were really comforting and reassuring that they said, like, you're going to be a full-time undergraduate student. You're going to have access to all of the facilities. And I've come from London, so I'm like from London. So having like a guaranteed first year place in halls of residence was also really reassuring. And then when I got to do my foundation year, it was actually like the best year of my life. It was really good because the learning wasn't as interrupted, and it felt very much like school in some ways, but at the same time, it really helped me settle into university life.
And Sarah was saying that actually she was offered a standard undergraduate at Warwick, but she actually chose to do the foundation at Manchester and then go into the biomed, which I think is really interesting. I think don't just think, oh, the foundation year is rubbish. It's for the whatever. It's not. It's just a really interesting way of accessing the course. And yes, maybe it's a little slower, but ultimately maybe your experience might be richer and more in your kind of tool house. And one of the things I'd like to talk about now, moving into the next section, and actually, if you could have a think about this question, what tips would you give students who are in this position, who are watching this live, who are waiting nervously for results day? what tips do you think you would give to help them prepare for university? So hold that thought and think about what your two tips. Louise, do we have any questions you think might be worth us getting as well?
Got a question from Samuel. How they can check
Oh, good question. How you can check the UCAS points. What I would say is just Google UCAS tariff calculator, and UCAS have a calculator that you can put the grade, and then that will kind of come up with the tariff equivalent. Otherwise, just Google it, and it will be on all image searches. Obviously, you don't have your results yet. I don't, unless you do, Samuel, and you're on a gap year. So I wouldn't put any worry in grade boundaries. I'm an examiner this year. Grade boundaries haven't been decided, so don't waste too much time thinking you're going to get X, Y, and Z. But it is worth looking at the kind of ballpark of the UCAS tariff. Also, UCAS clearing is open. It opened on the 5th of July, I believe. So actually, courses that have availability will become open on UCAS. So you can see what their tariff requirements are, and if they have an availability on clearing, and then kind of go like that. I hope that's clear. Any more? Ask that question again if you're still here. So what was the question?
Does it increase UCAS?
Okay, if that was your question, ask it again. Keep coming, keep the questions coming, and we will get to them. Shall I go to this question then? Top tips, and maybe Louise is going to choose the two best questions while we're thinking. So yeah, make a good question, guys. So yeah, who wants to go first? Just because you're sitting next to me, you don't have to go first.
Would you like to go?
Yes, you will.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started uni a long time ago, but I do remember that was a really big step for me. Many things were different, and I do think I felt overwhelmed most of that year. And looking back, I think just being okay with that. Maybe you don't have to have everything figured out. It's absolutely fine. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, thinking, oh, I need to know how to do this. And in hindsight, I think maybe if I had been as tough on myself, I would have enjoyed that year much more. So that's maybe the first thing I would say.
And I really concur with that. I think I did a post today being like, the one piece of advice I would say is try not to pretend to be someone else. But I like that Jesus is saying, just accept that it is going to be a bit odd. It is going to feel out of your comfort zone, and that is okay. And I think largely it is the same for everyone else, but just people react differently to that feeling. So some people are really good in that feeling and kind of pretend that everything's okay, but deep down they're just like, wow. And I would say it's okay to go home. It's okay to call mum and dad or family. It's fine to do what you need to do. And university it's a transition, and I think I'm a secondary school teacher. I'm a sixth form teacher. The support system has gone from complete over you all the time, demanding homework, telling you blah, 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 to basically nothing. And that's a massive transition. So I think just be okay with it not being okay. I mean, and we'll get to why join the dots will ensure that it will always be base level okay, but essentially it's a change, and it's going to be weird. Anyway, Sarah.
I definitely agree with what has been said. So I actually did a foundation year, so my transition I felt was even more smooth and a bit more gradual. So I wasn't too scared. However, one thing that really did help, and something I wish I had done before, like in this time when you're waiting for exam results, is referencing. I know that we do referencing quite a lot for like biology practicals or for like English literature or for whatever it is, whatever coursework you're submitting. But at university, for most of your courses, you will be referencing, and you can get a good amount of marks for referencing. And the people that tend to like not do as well, it is because of the referencing. It's not to do with the quality or content of their work. So I would really recommend referencing something that you can learn by yourself. And you might be thinking, where do I start with referencing? I don't have any teachers with me at the moment. I would really recommend just typing into any university name referencing guide and just having a practice. Because if you can get this done in your free time, when it comes to actually doing it for your academic assignments, you'll do it so much more quickly. And because of my foundation year, we did get a lot of practice with that. So I was like, I've always like never had any faults with referencing. But I know even if you get one or two mistakes in referencing at university, you do lose marks from your coursework. So I would just say, like, have a go at referencing a YouTube video. I don't think most of you have done that as part of your course. So it's always nice because at university you do tend to reference a whole range of sources. It's not just like academic papers. It can be things like photos, for example. And like we had to like learn how to reference like copyright free images, which I had never done before. And I was thrown at university to do that, and I had to kind of figure it out myself.
I think that's such good advice. So what Sarah means by referencing is accrediting the source from which you're writing about or kind of drawing from. And I know I'm guilty of it. I'll Google something, I'll just like copy and paste it into whatever document and then move on. And actually, that's basically plagiarism. Academic referencing is basically properly citing who that thing is written by or what that study is, etc. And Harvard referencing is a really common one. Jesus, what do you think about that? Is that good advice?
Yeah,
referencing?
absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great idea, and actually reminded me of something really important. For me, I think I would use that first year at university to kind of build the foundation for the rest of the degree. That's something that we did a lot during the Join the Dots, and specifically with my groups of students. There's three skills that I think all students really valued. There was, as you say, references, so citation and ensuring that when you mention an idea, you ensure that you give credit to whomever came up with that idea. And there's two very important things, I believe. There's time management, because there's many things going on during university. And that's, of course, your lectures, prepping materials.
Seminars.
Exactly. Seminars, coursework, but also the social bits and things that are fun and that, take up your time as well. And on that note, I think it's also really important to kind of build a system around note taking and revision. And it's likely that at school you kind of had a more guided approach. So your teachers told you what to do or they recommended. At university, you're not going to have that, which is on the one hand great because it gives you the freedom and the flexibility, but also you need to build that. So I would say do think about what works and what doesn't work for you, and use that first year to, come to grips with the many things that you have to learn.
I totally agree. I'm writing all this down because I think it's really, really important. We have two questions, or I think maybe three, I can't remember. While Jesus is talking, I'm like off in the corner, like working out questions. So well done, Jesus, because the eye contact's all over the place. While we're answering these questions, could you guys have a think about any financial advice you would give to students? Because I think it's a massive thing, and anything that maybe helped you would be really useful.
Yeah, I would definitely be happy to share. So, in terms of financials, I think I was quite blind. I didn't actually realize like how much money I would get by student finance. Fortunately, there is something called a student finance like online calculator of eligibility. If you type that into Google, you can figure out how much you're estimated likely to get from the government. It is a loan that you do have to pay back, but there's one really important thing that you should know. There are some people that choose to not take out the full amount that they're eligible for, and this can adversely affect your ability to be eligible for bursaries. So bursaries are free pots of money from the university. And at my university, for example, there was a £4,000 grant offered for the foundation year for 1 year. So you didn't have to pay that back, but you are only eligible for it if you had a certain, if your parents or whoever looks after your household income was below a certain amount that was set on their website. And also you had to take the full amount of student finance that you were eligible for, so to be eligible for that money. So there's things like bursaries that are available at university. Each university offers bursaries, but the amount that you get will vary depending on your household income, but also the university. Furthermore, so I've done some research into the universities that I applied to, and some universities wouldn't offer cash. They would offer it in terms of credit or like a discount for accommodation. So that's really important to like think about like which university would you prefer to go to, which finances are really important. And personally for me, I would rather choose the money because I can use it for so many more different things rather than just at the university for rent. Well, it might be a bit wise, but also money matters. So there's bursaries, there's also part-time work, which I ended up doing. There's lots and lots of different opportunities getting involved at work. I understand that some of you might not want to work during university term time, and that's completely okay. There's lots of jobs that you can do in the summer, and I think university really helps you in terms of getting experience to get you into work and getting a cover letter, a CV, preparing for an interview. So there's bursaries, there's student finance, there's getting a part-time job. But the final thing that I really want you to go research is there's something called this. There's bursaries that are run by banks. So, for example, NatWest, I think yes, NatWest offered a bursary from a bank with 5 partner universities, with the University of Manchester being one. And there was like an application that you had to fill in as to why you would want this £1,000 sum of money. And in exchange for that £1,000 of money that they gave you, you had to attend like I think 3 online sessions about careers and development and getting ready for work. So there's things like that that are out there. There's also like a lot of support at university if you're really struggling with rent or something, for example. I know my university in particular has a cost of living fund, which you can like apply for up to £2,000, which you don't have to pay back. So there are things like hardship funds, but you really need to like research your universities that you've chosen on your UCAS forms, or like when you're applying for UCAS, like what universities you're choosing for which, in case you needed that money or you already know that you come from a low income household, or your parents don't come from a low income household, but they can't support you as well at university.
Totally agree. And you're so clear and articulate, it's beautiful. And also, I'm just going to do a bit of a plug. So join the dots. If you sign up now, it will take 5 minutes. And if you attend one of the 2 webinars, one of them is the end of July, one of them is the end of August, you will be in the running to get £1,000 towards your university. So like, just go join the dots. Just seriously do it. Quick. Louise, what are you telling us?
So there's a link in your bio.
Oh, there's a link in my bio, apparently. Thanks, Louise. I'm hopeless at that. So one of the questions I do remember is, can you take your UCAT on a gap year? And the answer quite simply is no. You have to take the UCAT, which is the University Clinical Admission Test. You have to take that the year that you apply to university. You can't then defer it. So that's my clear answer for that. Louise, was there another question I completely forgot?
There's a few questions on personal statements. There's one on any tips to write in a personal statement, and also any tips on how to show passion or add your personal touch for a STEM.
And actually, can we start with that one? Jesus, can we start with you? Because you are the professional of the group here. Universities talk about supercurricular a lot, and how to kind of essentially show passion in your personal statement through reading, engaging with lectures, doing stuff outside of A-levels. Could you recommend, how do we do that? How do kids do that? How do they access this stuff, particularly with a STEM focus?
So, I mean, I think if we think about why they wanted to write that statement, is because they really want to gauge whether you're passionate about your topic. So the first thing I would say, you truly need to be passionate. And if you're not passionate about something, maybe that's not your thing. And that's not to say that you need to be busy 24/7 doing things. But just really have a think, maybe if you realize that something's not really your cup of tea, that's fine.
Totally.
Maybe be honest with yourself. I've had to write personal statements for all my my undergrad, my master's, and also my PhD. And I've got some really good advice that I got from my supervisors and the people who've helped me along the way. That's actually one of my tips: to ask other people. They can give you feedback on your statements. And think about, on the one hand, what excites you about a given topic. It might be very true that you're just passionate about something, and I can fully sympathize with that. But that probably will not make for a very strong statement, because ultimately you're all writing a statement saying that you're passionate. So I think my top tip is, don't say, but prove. So what can you say that will really show that you're passionate about something? That can be, for example, why are you interested in, let's say, biology? Well, maybe you did take some extracurricular and you learned about something, you volunteered doing something that you discovered, I really want to do this. If you've had any summer experience, like, if you've ever visited a lab or have some, I know that it's rare, but it can happen that some during high school students do research. That sort of, it shows that you've done something and you're really interested. That can make for a very strong statement, I think.
Have you got any tips about where they could find that? Because that's the chestnut, that's the rub. I mean, at JSTOR, most students at school might have access to JSTOR, which is access to research. Is there anything that you think is like you can think open access to stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head. There's so much out there, and it's finding out about those opportunities that's really hard. I can speak from my experience. So I work at the Francis Crick Institute, which is a biomedical research institute in central London. It's based in Camden, and they do offer a work placement opportunity for students under 18 who are based in Camden. So unfortunately, this is not available for everyone. But what I'm trying to say is that there are many opportunities like that that we just don't hear about. So if you're, use the internet, try to talk to people who work at institutes. It's true that maybe most, for example, for STEM, it might be a bit hard to find those programs, those placements, because not all institutions offer them, but many do. And I think reaching out to people is definitely your best shot.
I agree. And actually maybe even going to the department at the university you're most interested in and be like, listen, what do you have available? What do you recommend? Maybe even seeing if you get undergrads on LinkedIn and seeing what they did. I know for STEM, the Nuffield research opportunity is an amazing one. I don't know if you've heard about that. That's closed now, but if you're in year 11 looking to go into year 12, to be honest, if there are any year 11s here on this live, I'd say you are in the best position, because actually September of year 12 is the best time to look for this stuff because it's all available now. It's kind of winding up, but there is the St John's College Cambridge poster competition that closes on the 5th of August. I literally speak about it all the time, and it's really open-ended and you can kind of put your stuff there. Sarah, what do you think? Any advice for you? Because you wrote your personal statement quite recently, presumably.
Yes. So in terms of my personal statement, it was kind of like, obviously I was writing it in the era of like writing it for my home with the COVID-19 lockdowns. And I was really stressed out because I always heard people saying, you need to go into a lab, you need to do this, you need to do that. So the route that I actually took was I wrote about how I volunteered to help run the biology club that was taking place at lunchtime. And I felt like that was really good because biomedical science has got a lab aspect to it. So I talked about how I supported year 7 to year 11s with biology club. And even though I wasn't a teacher, I wasn't able to like really do that much. I was able to show awareness of like the safety protocols in place and support other younger people, younger adults in my school with like using a microscope. So I kind of showed like leadership. So that was one of the routes that I took to show enthusiasm for my my degree. Another thing that I did was I undertook an EPQ. I was quite scared of doing an EPQ. So for those that don't know what that is, it's an extended project qualification, and it's a level 3 qualification. So it's similar, it's equivalent to an AS. And I didn't want to do it because I wrote about 10,000. It was about a 10,000 word project whilst you're doing your A levels. So it's quite a big workload, and I really wanted to drop out. The one thing that stopped me from dropping out was that another student tried to say that they wanted to drop out, and the teacher got really angry. So then I didn't want to say
I
didn't want to say that I wanted to drop out because it is challenging to some extent trying to manage that alongside 3 or 4 A levels. However, it really, really helped me with my personal statement because I chose mine on like how toiletries affect the human endocrine system. And so I ended up doing like a lot of research with PubMed and like learning how to reference. And it also showed my enthusiasm for biomedical science, of how I was really interested in how the body works. I also talked about how lots of people talk about books that they read, but I didn't have really access to books at the time. And I talked about how I just watched a documentary on hormones. And I was genuinely really interested in that and how that inspired me to write an EPQ, basically like a mini project on hormones and toiletries that we use every day, like shower gels. And that honestly has really helped me with like academic writing at university. So I think all of those sort of things combined, even though I didn't do that much volunteering, really helped, and I didn't get any professional lab experience, has led me to now being in university, finishing second year of university, and like securing like a lab placement in a research facility.
Nice one. And I think lots of students get freaked out, because I think Charlie's on here and he's currently doing a Cambridge cool thing, and he worked his arse off to get that one thing. He's applied to so many. And it does feel a bit like it's very scarce culture of everyone doing this and you're just scrapping around and not getting the thing. And it's like, if I don't get the thing, I won't get in and blah, blah, blah. It honestly isn't. It isn't about the what you're doing. It's about what you are generating and thinking about, and what it's made you feel about your course. And as Sarah's saying, it could be volunteering in your school. It could be creating your own little research experiment. I mean, I'm a social scientist, so it's easier to do than maybe in a lab. But like thinking about what you can do with the resources that you have is absolutely as equitable as doing a 2-week clinical paid internship thing. I'm just using loads of words, but it isn't the what, I promise you. It's the how you're dealing with it. And I think just finally with the personal statement thing, and then we'll get to maybe another question if there are any. A really simple structure is, why do you want to do the course? Particular bits of your A level that you've loved about that kind of relate to that course, some things that you've really engaged with outside of your course that you're excited by, and then maybe like 2 lines about anything else that makes you an all-round interesting person. Keep it that simple. And as Jesus is saying, absolutely just try and constantly prove your interest rather than saying words like I'm passionate, I love. They're just expansive, emotive words. And finally, oh my God, I could blab about this forever. If you're a STEM student, these universities don't expect you to be Shakespeare. They just expect you to try and evidence that you are interested in this subject. So don't worry about these posh words. Please don't use ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT is a really interesting resource, but not for this. It's a personal statement. Make it personal to you. And actually, something I would not contradict Jesus. It's really important to get feedback, but it's also okay to not agree with that feedback or not to necessarily take it on. Listen to it and then you decide, because ultimately it's a personal statement. Next year after, there's talks about being a video submission. There'll be questions that are breaking it down. This is the final year of quite a hard mountain of these 4,000 characters. It's hard, but just break it down, keep it simple. Bish, bash, bosh. Louise, next question.
Someone's asked if you could be accepted into uni with really low.
Yes, essentially. I have had throughout this year some amazing students who've got in contact with me saying, listen, I've got an offer from Oxford and I don't have any GCSEs to my name. Universities are doing something that's really interesting, that are, I think, something that schools aren't doing. And again, we spoke about this a little bit. They're really contextually relating to you. So if you have a situation which means that your academics have been disrupted, you might still be in the running to get an offer. Schools, I think, need to kind of get back onto this bandwagon. But essentially, yes, but you do need a reason. And if you do get an offer, they might also provide you with a kind of preparation program, a bit like Join the Dots, or they might kind of ask you to do some extra work alongside it to kind of get you ready. Because remember, you want to get into university, but you also want to be able to thrive at university, and you don't just want to be able to like get in and like hang off by the skin of your teeth. Is that the phrase? I always get the phrases wrong. You want to thrive, and you want to make sure you've got the knowledge and the grounding to be able to do so. So going back to what Sarah did, she did that foundation so that she could up her chemistry. Blah 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 blah. Any other questions?
Someone has asked if do you think as a STEM student using big words puts off?
Good question. What do you think, Jesus, as a PhD, because you work with students, right?
Yeah.
Big words? Do you want to see big words?
I think there's a really big difference between big words and empty words. And what no one likes is those empty words. Sometimes, yeah, you can say I'm passionate about something, but ultimately that doesn't prove that you're passionate about something. And I fully agree with you. It's about evidence in what you do. Just to clarify, I don't think that you need to have that research experience to get to uni. And ultimately, I think it's about showing maturity, interest, and a commitment to learning. That's really what universities want to see in you. So there's many opportunities. Do whatever's within reach, and I think that's really what they want to see. Big words, not necessarily. I'm not against it, but whatever you say, make sure that there's substance to it, and that you're not just saying something because you think they're going to like it. I think that's not a helpful approach.
Totally agree. And while the mic's on you, Jesus, this is something I wanted to ask you before. if you look back at your time, is there anything you would have done differently at university now where you are?
Can I take a second to think
You
about
can take a
that?
time to think about it. And actually, Sarah, while you're cogitating, any thoughts on accommodation? I get asked this a lot. How do you choose accommodation? When do you choose accommodation? Did you know that you were going to Manchester, so you had your accommodation booked now, or did you do it? Like, talk me through it.
Okay, so I knew that I definitely wanted to live away from home, and I knew that some universities offer an accommodation guarantee for the first year. So I'm not going to lie, I was quite blind. I was very unprepared for university accommodation. So what happened was on A level results day, I got my results and I called the helpline, as I mentioned earlier, and agreed that I wanted to do the foundation year and accepted the offer. At that point, I then applied for accommodation. So I knew that there was a first year guarantee. And it was really simple. You just had to go on the website, make an account, and then just choose 5 options. There was a range of budgets. Some of them were quite expensive and some of them a bit cheaper. And I did my research. So I used YouTube and the student room. And I also used Google Maps to kind of like see if anyone had left Google reviews on there. So I kind of had an awareness and I was very excited. But in terms of accommodation, in terms of finding accommodation, I think it's really important to like type in whatever name of the university you're applying to or thinking of and typing in accommodation, because another university accommodation process for applying is different. It might not be the same. And also some people might want to go privately. I personally wanted to go into halls of residence because there's things like Res Life events. Res Life is like
Res Life?
Yes.
RES. Okay.
Yes. Res Life is like a service run by the university that ensures like you settle in and have like a named contact. And also it helps with like running events so you can meet other flatmates. So in terms of like that's why I chose to stay in university halls and like go there instead of going privately. So I didn't have accommodation like set until like after A level exam results day.
Interesting.
I know some people they did apply before the A level exam results day, but for me, I just wanted that peace of mind that like I'm definitely going to this university. I'm definitely going to apply for accommodation now. However, if you choose to go privately, so there's like lots of providers like IQ, for example, not sponsored, just saying that. IQ, for example, if you choose to apply late, like at exam results day, it's going to be really expensive compared to if you had chosen to apply for it privately beforehand. So if you know that you want to go to London University, for example, and you want to live privately, do check if they have a money back guarantee if you don't end up going to that university.
Really good point.
Because you could end up losing like a good sum of money, especially if you paid it all up front. And they're very specific on like how you can get your money back. So if you end up like not getting the grades, they might give you your money back. But if you do get the grades, you get in and you choose not to go, they might be a bit iffy and not give your money back. So just double check whenever you're going privately or signing anything privately, because university halls of residence, their accommodation guarantee, they're very nice and very flexible with students. Cancelling, being like, I don't want to live in halls anymore. Can I get a refund of the £400 deposit I gave? And they'll give it back. But when you sign privately, they're not that forgiving.
But it's really interesting. Ultimately, Sarah's saying that she got accommodation after she got her results, and universities do have a portion of their accommodation that is saved till then. So if you don't have your accommodation sorted now, it's absolutely fine. And before we get to Jesus with that massive question, Sarah, you are so clued up with stuff like this and like everything, like student finance, accommodation. And I can't help thinking, I think it's because you did join the dots, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Join the Dots is why we're here. This is being sponsored by the Brilliant Club, which is a charity that does loads of kind of different things, within the education sector. And Join the Dots is their new program, and they've got an amazing amount of year 12 and this is 13 sign up already, but there are still spaces. And this program enables you, it gives you the information you need right now so that you know about accommodation, you know about finance, you know about the academic requirements, the study skills, the academic referencing, all that kind of stuff. I just plead with you. I only do stuff that I believe in, and I believe in this completely. And I just want you guys to just literally like cannonball into university, be powerful, be effective. It's expensive, so let's make this work. This is just, honestly, just do it. It's chef's kiss. Just sign up today. Do it, please. But sorry. So what would you say would be your kind of key takeaways that after having done the program, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm really glad I did join the dots because.
I think I'm really glad that I did join the dots because it really helps me kind of settle into university and feel like I belong. Belonging is so important. At school, you might feel like you belong and this is your place. Personally, for me at school, it kind of did feel that way, but at times it didn't as well. So I was really worried that when I went to university, I would be like by myself, I'd be isolated, I'd have no friends, I wouldn't fit in. But now I can genuinely say that, like, I feel like Manchester, my university, is my school. I feel like I've really settled in. So join the dots. The one thing that it has helped me is feel like that I belong and that I can do well at university because it has taught me those study skills and like that time management, referencing, given me that point of contact outside of university, the PhD coach, to talk about things like, oh, I feel like I'm not really making any friends, or I feel like I'm really struggling with a module. Like just having like that informal slash professional conversation with somebody that's already been through it as a PhD coach who is also going to my university and knows where they can signpost me for help or like give me advice. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I think join the dots has really helped me belong at university, and as a result, I feel like I can do my best at university.
I love that. And if you are going to King's, or if anyone's holding an offer from King's, Jesus might be your PhD mentor, which is the brilliant segue to that massive question. So, if you had your time again, would there be anything you would do differently?
Yeah, thanks for that big question, Clem. I've been thinking I'm really happy with where I've ended up, and I'm really proud of myself for the journey. But I think I've made many mistakes. Many things have not turned out to be like I thought they would. I'm fine with that. I really think the one thing I wish I could travel back in time is to reassure myself that everything was going to be all right and that I did belong when I went to university. I think I don't want to scare anyone, and it's not necessarily going to be a horrible time. It's not about that. But I do think I was really harsh on myself, and I remember comparing myself to other people. And a piece of advice that someone gave me some years ago is, when you're comparing yourself to others, you're usually comparing your worst with someone else's best, or at least your perception of someone else's best, which is never fair. And that's a war you're never going to be able to win. So I think looking back, it maybe that, feeling overwhelmed, putting a lot of pressure on myself, comparing myself to other people, I think I could have absolutely done without that. I would have had a much better time. It would have been a much more positive experience. And I do think that, I wish I'd had the opportunity to join, to be part of Join the Dots if something similar had existed in my time in Spain. Because ultimately, it's absolutely fine. And I think giving yourself that space to learn and that mentality of it's fine, I'm going through this, give yourself time and space to learn. You don't need to have everything figured out. That's absolutely fine. That's something that, looking back, I wish I'd kind of changed my mentality early on.
I totally agree, and I think that would be mine as well. And we've got a thumbs up. Louise has got a comment. So go for it, Louise.
Just on this sort of theme of like being kind of yourself and stuff, someone asked any tips for getting through the end of exams.
I think that's such a good
I'm
question.
definitely going through that at the moment. So I'm actually waiting for my exam results that are coming out on the 15th of July for university. So I can definitely sympathize with you guys. I feel like sometimes my life is a little bit boring. Something that has really helped me personally is to keep busy and kind of have a positive mindset. So for me, I already know that the exams are done and I cannot change the outcome of the exam. So why should I be sad about something or overthink about something that I cannot change that's going to happen in the future? So keeping busy, maybe try something new. I've got books that are waiting to be read, so I've been trying to get ahead and read those books to pass the time. I've been trying to cook. getting outdoors, so hiking, going rock climbing, going swimming, just getting part in hobbies. Maybe get off TikTok, not right now.
Don't get off TikTok. We love it. We love it. Shut up, Sarah.
But what I'd say is that it's easy to like kind of just like lie in bed and just stay on your phone, just wait for the time to pass. But if you keep busy and stay positive, maybe don't think about like the outcome and the consequences, because I know for me, I'm very worried, like, what if I failed an exam? What if I didn't do as well? What if I could have done better? Like, we have all these like negative thoughts, but I think the best thing to do is be happy. Okay, that's really like, just be happy, but like also be very, very grateful that you got through those exams and now you get this time to enjoy, relax, and you should make the most out of it, because once you do get your exam results, you'll realize that you might have wasted that time. You might feel a bit of regret. So make the most of the time that you have now, doing things that you like, or things that you've never tried before, or things that you didn't have the time to do when you were studying, or connecting with friends and family. And it might be like nice to maybe say to like your family members or something, to say, like to not really talk about exam results at the moment. Like I know for my parents, they keep asking me, are you going to America? Because my grades are dependent on if I go to America for my placement year. And I tell my parents, like, hopefully, but I don't really want to talk about that until the time comes.
I think this is such an important question. And I just say, from my 41-year-old ancient experience, I think I just ask you all to reflect on this word success and failure. And I think if you look at us, we're all quite different. We've got to. It's this idea of marriage. If you get married, you're happily ever after, bish bash bosh. The reality is that's not true. There's no end point in life. Is what I'm trying to say. There's no just straight lines to success. These results might turn out exactly as you want. They might turn out better. They might turn out worse. And I think all I just want to say to you is whatever happens, you will be okay. I promise you. And even if you don't get into Cambridge and you want to get into Cambridge, you might end up doing a PhD at Cambridge a couple of years later. I was listening to a podcast where my mate was on that podcast earning thousands of pounds, and he didn't get to Cambridge. He basically spent the first 10 years in his 20s in a bit of a kind of quagmire of failure, and is what he said. The reality is he's now a multi-millionaire. Life is long. I think it's okay to feel stressed, but just really deeply reflect on this notion of success. It might not be now, but it doesn't mean that it's not, it doesn't mean it's the end. And just try and be gentle and try and honestly have that big picture. And it's easy for me to say because I'm not in that position. I was when I was really, really scared, but I promise you, it's just not one size fits all. And it's not, if it's not now, it will be when. Anyway, Louise, any other questions? Because I think we'll probably wrap up quite soon.
There was one question sometimes, it's quite specific. Is lab work experience valuable?
Jesus, do you want to have a go at that one? I mean, you're kind of in that space.
I mean, I would say it can help, but it's by no means a requirement. And I would say, research and clinical practice are not necessarily the same. So I would say if you want to do research because that's of interest to you, and in fact, it might be helpful to kind of decide. Many people go into medicine because we've all been in contact with doctors and our GPs. So maybe some people want to do medicine because they're interested in that, but they don't know that research is an option. So I would say if it's very clear to you that you want to do medicine because you want to do like clinical practice in the future, I don't think it's a requirement. If you're curious about research, I would give it a try. So my short answer is no, not necessarily. Do it if you want to, if you're curious and if you think that's valuable to you.
I think it won't hurt, but it won't necessarily be the thing that makes you, oh yeah, you're doing medicine. But I think it's a really important thing to maybe do to distinguish, is actually medicine something that I want to do? Because these two kind of professionals, or quite professionals, are in that space but not doing medicine. And there's a whole world around medicine that you should definitely, I would encourage it, but maybe not just so that you get into medicine, more so you could maybe rule it out. Anyway, I think we've got about 5 minutes. So, like, if you're still here and you haven't asked a question or you haven't had your question asked, do it now. Do it now. Just get it ahead. Any question?
Someone who I think is French. Can an international student or Cambridge in a scholarship?
I think it's the same. I'm going to say it's the same answer for regardless of any university. There are possible scholarships, but that it's really interesting the way you apply to university. You apply first, you apply as an international, you apply as a domestic student, and then once you get your place, then you would apply for the scholarships. There are a whole world of different scholarships, but they are in university dependent, and each scholarship will have a very particular eligibility. And you've got to read the fine print, but you aren't guaranteed that scholarship. So unfortunately, there is no guarantee. There's an absolute possibility that you might get that scholarship, but it's a competitive world. I'm afraid. How do you fund your PhD?
Well, PhDs in general, it's effectively like doing another degree, but most PhDs, so most departments will offer the opportunity to fund it if there's funding allocated to that position. In my case, for example, my PhD is at a research institute and they run a PhD program, so they have separate funding. I would not encourage anyone to do a PhD without funding, so self-funded, because on the one hand, the tuition fees it's true that they're less expensive than a master's or undergrad, but they're still expensive. And of course, you need to pay your bills.
And you need to be practical, don't you? It's a bit like you need to be strategic. You need to find the PhD that has that money so that, otherwise it's crazy.
Was the area you initially wanted to research the area you ended up?
No, and that brings me to, I fully agree with everything you've said, both Clem and Sarah. I think it's really important to, plan ahead, because you don't want to be doing something that is not a good fit for you. But you can change your mind, and that's absolutely fine. When I started my undergrad, I didn't really know if research was my thing. When I did my undergrad thesis, I was working on immunology, and I also did some research in immunology during my master's. I'm doing a PhD in developmental biology, which is quite a big pivot from immunology. And that's because it was interesting to me, and it still is. After my PhD, I will probably not do research. So all this to say, as long as you're doing something that's dear and important to you, I think that's the most important thing.
This is a massive question. Do you think university is worth it?
Ooh. I think maybe my generation, and again, my background, really valued university. I think the world has changed a lot in the past 20 years. I guess university in Spain is much more affordable than it is in the UK. So I think it's quite common for people to go to university, which I think on the one hand is great, because for many years education was one way to improve someone's condition, and I understand why someone would want to go to university. I think it's a really big question. I think financially it's a really hard decision, and for many years I think there's been that mindset of, if you go to university you're going to be successful, and I don't think that's maybe where I would put my focus. Maybe university is not for everyone, and the fact that you go to university does not necessarily mean that you're more successful than someone who doesn't go to university.
True. What do you think?
Okay, so I don't know if I would say it's worth it, especially with the rising tuition fees that happen every so often. However, I would say, coming from a household where my parents didn't go to university, I can see how having a university degree, or like even studying for one, puts you at such an advantage in terms of getting jobs or the opportunities that are available to you. So it's in terms of like the jobs that you can apply for. Lots of jobs require you to have a degree. Also in terms of like graduate programs and things like that, and also like being able to like work abroad or go abroad, especially in terms of working or relocating abroad, it's so much more advantageous if you had a degree. But it doesn't mean you have to go through the degree route the conventional way. You could look into something like a degree apprenticeship, where your degree is basically funded by an employer. So I would say price tags maybe not worth it, but for some people, it really is that stepping stone for social mobility.
Yeah, hallelujah, amen, sister. Right, I'm going to summarise what we've gone through today. So I've learned quite a lot. Firstly, if you're holding an offer from Essex, Kings, Durham, Kent, Bristol, Goldsmith and Bristol, I've already said Bristol, sign up to join the dots now. PhD mentor Jesus / loads others up and down the country will be yours, and that will help you belong, which is probably the most important thing to ensure that you make a comfortable and kind of secure start to university. Referencing is something that's really important to start thinking about. Maybe do a little bit of light Googling, join the dots. There's resources out there about how to get referencing so that you can start university well. I think, Sarah, your advice about taking out the full maintenance that you are eligible for is brilliant, because it means that you can then be eligible to the other university bursaries that are out there. I think that's really, really clever. Also, certain banks have a look at their bursaries for particular universities. Accommodation, it's okay that you don't have it now, absolutely fine. I love, Jesus, your phrase, big words versus empty words. So it's okay to use big words, but just make sure they're not empty. YouTube, Student Room, Google Maps are your friend when it comes to just all sorts of university research. Res Life, never heard of that. Student Life, that kind of thing. And I think we should just give a bit of like an applause to you guys for coming along and just spending this time answering my inane questions. But I hope they've been useful. And yeah, just thank you, and round of applause, please. And if you've enjoyed this, just sign up to join the dots. But I think that's it. Louise, is there anything else you'd like to share or say or ask? Cool. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone. Have a happy Monday, and get signing up now. Bye.